Thank you. Let's go right on into the Student Affairs Committee with Governor Duncan.
Okay. I'll call the Student Affairs Committee to order. Mikey, if you could do a roll call, please. Got it? You want me to do it?
Okay. The Vice Chair is Dr. Marshall.
Here.
Dr. Marshall?
Yep.
Are you present? He's here. Mr. Edwards is here. Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. Meyer?
Present.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Dr. Solano? She was on the phone. Mr. Stavros? He's here.
Here.
Dr. Zachariah?
Here.
And Ms. Duncan, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I'd also like to start by I think that the student body president for FAMU is in the audience. Andrew, are you here? Is he still here? He was here? Okay. If he comes back in, AJ, help point him out so we can recognize him. And we also, is Chris here? Is he in the audience?
He should.
Okay. Well, we also had the Student Association Executive Director that we've been working with, so if they walk in, I'll make sure we point them out to everybody. Wanted to bring the first item, which is our regulation for public notice, just as a quick reminder that we draft the regulations, they're revised by SAP, they're sent out to all the universities, reviewed by campus administrator, deans, general counsels, vice presidents, and then each regulation is formally noticed by the board, and at subsequent meetings of the board will take action on the regulation. So today we have this regulation which will be formally noticed by the board, and at the February board meeting the regulation will be acted upon. So I would like to, maybe Dottie or John, or do either of you want to walk us through this regulation, or do you want me to? Are we losing everybody?
Yes, ma'am. Briefly, the regulation is developed by a campus and university-wide work group. The work group consisted of university auxiliary service staff, faculty, senate representatives, and of course students. And the intent of the work group was to develop a recommendation to assist the boards of trustees in implementing the law that was passed last session. And it offers advice and counsel. There is also a series of suggestions on how to implement the law. Primarily, the law is very prescriptive for faculty, and our regulation works to offer advice on how to implement that in a more permissive fashion within the law.
Thank you. And I think there's been a great deal of discussion across all the various parties on this. Our staff, I think, is to be commended, but this is a very important issue. In many cases, our textbook costs are a real burden for our students, and in light of all the other challenges they're facing now, anything that we can be doing to help assist with that, I think this regulation moves that ball in the right direction. Are there any questions on the proposed regulation? Then I'd entertain a motion for approval.
Moved.
Well, the regulation will be noticed and then
to move forward, to go forward. Do we need to take an action on moving it forward, or just it's going forward?
Just for noticing. Just for noticing.
Okay. So we'll be bringing that back in February, but all in all, I think this is a good move forward for the state and for all parties involved. We had a meeting with the Student Affairs Vice Presidents at our last Board of Governors meeting, kind of in conjunction with that, to really try to talk to them about what are the options and priorities and things that we can do given the challenges we have with finances and staff and timing, and really to kind of have an open dialogue about how do we best utilize the resources we have and focus the efforts of the Student Affairs Committee going forward. My personal challenge to them, but I would very much appreciate and like the input from the others on the committee, was, I'm not sure that it is a really good effort for us to talk about a lot of things that we don't have a statewide role to help make better. So rather than coming and having a lot of reports and a lot of statistics and a lot of information, that given our limited resources, we should really focus on those things where we can help the universities and maybe by a statewide role can add value to the process versus adding an extra step in the process, or if there's something that we need to do. I will tell you that kind of in general, most of the student affairs issues tend to be we need more money. And I kind of said, okay, that one's off the table right now. If you want to increase fees or other things, we're probably not going to be able to do that right now. But if there's things that you have or regulations that you have or constraints that you have that you think you could, if changed, could better allocate the resources that you do have to be more productive, let's hear it. Let's talk about it. Let's understand what those parameters are. And so that was kind of the challenge back to the vice presidents. And we've been kind of going back and forth, and they've been part of the work plan. So I just, I think it's a good meeting. I think it's a good dialogue. That group seems to communicate pretty well together. But I think in some of these times, and it goes on to a little bit about what Rick and I will talk about with shared services. Yeah, I was really kind of pushing on what is it? Is there anything we can do differently, even as it relates to student affairs and processing of whatever? Yeah, are there any opportunities that we can, as a system, bring to the table? So as we get to the work plan, I wanted you to kind of know that was the context of that conversation. The 4 priorities that they came back to us with were related to, challenges with alcohol awareness and/or abuse problems on the campuses, health insurance issues, veteran services, and the first generation grant program. And so as we talk about the work plan, I think we can talk about those a little bit more, but that, was kind of a collective effort of discussion with that group. Are there any questions related to the vice presidents and some of their priorities, or can we kind of keep moving since we're running a little late on this one? Okay. Then the second half of the equation was I felt it was very important to talk with the student body presidents and get the student perspective on what student affairs should be doing. And so we had a conference call. Unfortunately, I had to be at a Bird Board meeting, so I couldn't be in person, but by phone I had a discussion with the student body presidents, I guess probably, 2 weeks ago? AJ, and really just wanted to kind of hear if they had their magic wand, what would the Board of Governors be addressing as it relates to student affairs issues, and where were their priorities, and where do we have common goals and objectives. And I think we're going to hear a little bit more from AJ on their legislative priorities. But I mean, it was a good, positive discussion. I just continued not to be amazed, but impressed by the articulate, brilliant minds we have helping work from our student government associations. And there's so much to be proud of. These kids are just brilliant, and they have such great energy and ideas. And I think the more that we can keep them engaged in their presence and involvement in all that we're doing here, it just really adds to our ultimate outcome. And and again, it's what we're here for. It's for the students and helping the process of higher education. So AJ, I don't know, is there anything you want to add about that discussion?
No, well, yes, a little bit actually. We had a very robust discussion with Governor Duncan regarding some issues that the student body presidents had on their various campuses, from the issue of alcohol awareness that our Vice President of Student Affairs also realized, from the campus police jurisdiction bill, and various other CITF fee increases and fee increases in general. And we expressed those issues and concerns to Governor Duncan, as well as we received feedback from her on her viewpoints on a lot of those issues. So it was a very robust and I think somewhat successful meeting, and we thank you, and open the door to any governor of the board that wants to attend via phone conference or in person to any of our meetings.
Absolutely. And just as a FYI, and that we did notice the meeting because we're both on the same board and minutes have been taken, and but I think it is a good vehicle, and I would encourage all of you. It's really it's great, interesting to talk with this group, and if you do have the opportunity to do it, I would take him up on that offer. And I also think it's important, we've had such great leadership back with Frank Harrison, who was a strong advocate of the quality of the SUS brand. Ryan, your predecessor, who was a strong voice for the need-based financial aid, and AJ, you've obviously been a strong voice on a number of issues this year, and funding adequacy and making sure that the student portion of the funds are going to what they're intended for. And so I encourage all of us to continue that line of dialogue. Do you want to go over your legislative priorities for the student affairs now, or do you?
I will be more than happy to.
I think it's really good if we can just take a few minutes to hear where they're going with their legislative agenda and where we do or don't have commonalities in what we're looking for.
And I want to thank you, John, for providing me many copies of this. So if anyone would like a copy of the Florida Student Association's legislative priorities, feel free to come and get one after this committee meeting. And I'm going to read it verbatim. On January 16, 2009, the Florida Student Association conducted their full board meeting. During this meeting, the board of directors discussed various constitutional changes as well as finalizing the Florida Student Association legislative priorities for the 2009 legislative session. And below you will find a detailed list of these. There were 5 points. One being differential tuition. The Florida Student Association understands the bleak economic state of Florida's economy and in response, the future cuts to higher education. Seeing the future cuts to higher education, as well as the previous cuts to our system of approximately $174 million, we see the need for the students to carry the burden of tuition to reach a level consistent with the national average. However, we demand the state's commitment to funding higher education at comparable levels. Therefore, our vision as an association this legislative session is value through accountability. With regards to House Bill 403, the Florida Student Association expects the legislature to amend the proposed tuition differential bill to account for a student accountability measure over the local board of trustees in the decision-making process with regards to allocation and/or approval of those generated dollars. In addition, the association demands the legislature's commitment to funding higher education, possibly creating guidelines of future funding. The second point is the implementation and future fee legislation. The FSA proposes language to current and prospective future fees, A&S, Health, Athletics, Tech, CITF, and Green Fee, which facilitates communication of need and student buy-in on the setting, increase, and expenditure of the fee, routing decisions through a fee committee of at least half plus one appointed by the student body president. The plus one is a variation of the current process set forth upon the university through current Florida statutes in reference to administering the A&S, athletic, and health fee. However, we believe it is needed as part of the composition of the committee to ensure that the student voice could never be trumped by the administration, faculty, or staff that currently holds the majority and essentially tie-breaking authority. The third point is bright futures. The FSA recognizes the importance of bright futures to the students of the SUS in terms of academic performance and providing opportunities to low-income urban demographic students. It is vital to the education of many of our peers. However, the association also realizes that Bright Futures can be coined as the BMW Fund, where students who perform excellent in the classroom that receive 100% Bright Futures tend to generate an income through this process during a semester. Furthermore, we see the standards to which Bright Future holds their recipients minimal at best. Therefore, the FSA understands the need for a revision in Bright Futures for the benefit of those students who excel in the classroom at both the high school and continue at the collegiate level, as well as those students who are unable to financially support oneself through an institution of higher learning. Number 4 is our mandatory health insurance. The FSA is in agreement with the Board of Governors with respect to reviewing and debriefed by Florida State University with respect to their success and/or difficulties with implementation and sustainability. And the last point is number 5, Senate Bill 472 in reference to early voting. And the FSA is unanimously supporting this piece of legislation with the addition of public universities. And that concludes our top 5 legislative priorities for the 2009 legislative session. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Any
You're welcome.
questions for?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
May I just ask for clarification on the mandatory health insurance position? It's not clear to me whether you believe that this should be expanded or simply for the board to have a continuing review of it.
Continuing review and discussion with Florida State University on their on the success of that program. We all know that the pharmacy, unfortunately, was downsized, if not closed, at this point in time. So we want to really review and have them brief us on the success and difficulties that they encountered throughout that process.
Okay, so you just want more information?
Correct.
Got it, thank you.
And I think that's in our work plan. Any other questions for AJ? Okay, just in light of the fact that our committee is supposed to end in 4 minutes, and that I'm under strict orders to get us back on time, what I would like to maybe suggest to the committee members is that if you have any questions relating to the work plan, that you contact John, and let's talk through those, and we'll kind of bring this back up at our next committee meeting, unless anybody has. But the one thing I'd like to ask, if you have an item you want to talk about adding to the agenda now, let's kind of talk that. But rather than walking through kind of each of the items and discussing it, let's move that to our next meeting. But if there's an item you want us to make sure we get incorporated, yeah, let's add that now. Okay, and we obviously will be adding more on the new, the financial aid opportunities with the existing resources that may be available. With that then, if, John, am I missing anything else? I think if we will go ahead and adjourn the Student Affairs meeting, and we'll be talking with you more shortly. So tell
Okay,
Madam Chair, she's on.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. We now will adjourn for lunch. Let me share with you, I believe that FAMU is ready. The board members, trustees who are here, presidents or their designees at the table, we're going across the hallway for lunch, and then everyone else who is here, there is lunch downstairs in the Rattler's Den. We will begin immediately at between 12:25 and 12:30, so please return so that we can stay on schedule. Thank you.